My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day, waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed.
1 week later.
We're hearing that President Trump has announced that there will be a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs.
Hello and welcome back to your favorite economic and political show, because this week we're once again discussing trade policy. And honestly guys, it was either this or the office siren aesthetic.
This outfit is making me want an office job so badly. Like, this office siren aesthetic is incredible.
So this is what we're going with, because I need to microdose the news in between TikTok sessions, or I'm gonna lose my mind. But look, if you're a normal person who doesn't watch the news, let me get you caught up to speed on this tariffs roller coaster that the entire world has been on for the last week, at the behest of the slowly disintegrating mind of Donald Trump. Now it has come to my attention as well in the comment section of my videos that some of you don't like it when I make it political. Literally, I could spend 20 minutes ranting and raving about ecological destruction and fast fashion, make one Trump joke in the middle, and I get a bunch of comments saying, I was enjoying it up until that Trump joke, why'd you have to make it political? Like, newsflash, that entire video was political. Politics is not whether you're team red or team blue, it's about the issues. This isn't Star Wars, though I wish it was, because Hayden Christensen has still got it. But I digress. There seems to be a lot of misinformation out there about these tariffs, especially from my age group. I've seen a lot of comments along the lines of, at least with these tariffs, at least we will stop maybe seeing all this overconsumption that we see on social media. Maybe you won't be buying 800 Stanley Cups if each one costs you a kidney. Though if you've been drinking out of Stanley Cups, then your kidney likely has lead poisoning, so it probably wasn't worth much anyway. But super high level here, a tariff is just a tax on imports into a country. And on April 2nd, which Trump dubbed Liberation Day, he strutted out to the White House lawn with a Cheesecake Factory menu of tariffs that he was basically hitting every country on earth with. The reasoning was simple, as Trump said that day. For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near and far, both friend and foe alike. American steelworkers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen, they really suffered greatly. They watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our once beautiful American dream. Heavy on the foreign there, folks. Heavy on the foreign. And look, this quote's a little more theatrical than I would have put it, but you know, this is how a lot of people think, right? I mean, this is how a vast majority of Americans see the world. I think the Trump speechwriters would be better served doing Wattpad fanfiction, but you know, I understand the point. Every day Americans wake up to miles and miles of hollowed out factory towns, abandoned buildings, widespread addiction, terrible Disney Plus shows, a distinct lack of Club Penguin, and Kanye West now wearing a Klan outfit. I mean, man, what happened to Kanye? I mean, someone has to do something about this. This is a real political issue. Alright, I added a couple personal grievances to the end of that list, but the point is that Trump is not wrong in identifying this problem. The outsourcing of manufacturing to low-income countries like China, Vietnam, and elsewhere hollowed out the middle class in this country for decades. And all we got in return was a never-ending flood of cheap Chinese plastic shit from Temu, Shein, low-quality bullshit which has now infected Amazon, Etsy, and basically every shop. Try to genuinely shop made in America, and it's basically impossible. Even if you have the money and are willing to spend and look around to find something that's made in the USA, there's a lot of things that we just don't know how to make here anymore. Entire sectors of goods which you just cannot find in this country. I know this is a Canadian example, but I still found it fascinating because I was window shopping on Canada Goose's website, and in their FAQ they explain why their gloves and mitts are made in China when everything else is made in Canada, and it's basically because they can't find a Canadian glove manufacturer. Like, they literally put a plea at the end, if you're in Canada and you know how to make gloves, please hit our line. They're literally saying, we don't want to be China Goose, we want to be Canada Goose, but none of you Canadians know how to make gloves anymore. The Americans are addicted to high fructose corn syrup, the Canadians are addicted to poutine, and nobody knows how to make clothes anymore. And we're gonna continue talking about the China piece of this, because a week after declaring Liberation Day, Trump walked back basically all the tariffs except for the Chinese ones. Yeah, after the stock market basically collapsed, he announced a 90-day pause on all tariffs except for the Chinese ones, which are now up to 145%. So apparently our liberation lasted about 5 business days. And call me crazy here, guys, but I don't exactly love the idea of the President of the United States turning on and off the global economy like he's trying to reset his fucking router. But this is what we've come to expect from this guy, just fucking around with the livelihoods of literally millions, if not billions of people, playing Russian roulette with the global economy, while Elon Musk gets cyberbullied by teenagers on a video game. And there was a stock market rally, and then it kind of tapered off, and who knows what it's at by the time this video comes out. But the point is that China is still America's #1 supplier for cheap goods, and 145% is a lot of percents. So I'm not gonna lie, much like my 1,000-day streak on Duolingo French, this is a crisis that's gonna be playing out for a while. And we just don't know all the consequences here. Whether it be a global recession, a $2,000 Nintendo Switch, we don't know. The fate of the world is now in the hands of two Geminis who hate each other. But here's what I do know. Poverty is not good, and anybody who thinks that these tariffs are gonna clamp down on American consumerism has never met an American in their life. First of all, this is a nation where you can now finance a burrito. I couldn't afford my Chipotle that was hand-delivered to me like I'm the king of England by a Guatemalan migrant on a moped, so I took out a loan. I mean, the alternative would be to cook myself a meal, and that's un-American. And secondly, yes, it's true that a global recession would cause a collapse in consumption, but that's not good. Listen guys, you can't be so angry about people doing Shein hauls that you're willing to let millions go hungry out of spite. This isn't a win for sustainability. As a matter of fact, when the economy is going downhill, people care a lot less about sustainability. People are not going to be looking at the labels on their clothes when they can't afford bread. And it goes without saying that Donald Trump has no interest in workers' rights or working conditions. He's not a union guy. He gutted the NLRB and labor protections. All he wants to do is import the horrific working conditions of low-income countries to the United States. And no American wants that. Like maybe the one group of people who are so economically marginalized that they would want a minimum wage factory job in America are immigrants, and he hates immigrants. He's made it his mission to deport every undocumented person in this country without due process. Literally the most anti-immigrant president we've had in probably a century, which is a crazy stance to have for someone who's hell-bent on bringing back manufacturing. Because, spoiler alert, most Americans don't want to leave their jobs as a desk jockey at Hertz Rent-A-Car Corporate to go stand in front of a coal furnace for 18 hours a day. I'm actually good. I've got air conditioning and a nice corner office, and I don't want to be standing for 16 hours a day fiddling with the screws on an iPhone. The screws are so tiny and my fingers are so big. Let me read this from you. These quotes from Gary Cohn, who was Trump's old economic advisor during his first term when he was trying to convince him that Americans don't want this. See, the biggest levers of jobs, people leaving voluntarily, was from manufacturing. I don't get it, Trump said. Cohn tried to explain. I can sit in a nice office with air conditioning and a desk, or stand on my feet 8 hours a day. Which would you do for the same pay? I mean, yeah, I'm good. I don't want to work in an oil refinery. I'd just rather be the guy taking your order at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. Welcome to Chick-fil-A. How may I pleasure you? And here's another problem. The first wave of tariffs stupidly included a bunch of other high-income countries, people who are our friends. Just across-the-board tariffs on the European Union, which is like where I'm trying to get my wine and my cheese from. Why is Trump trying to tax my wine and cheese? It's ridiculous. Most Americans are not buying things from Europe because they're cheap. They're buying things from Europe because they're European. It's not like American workers are being massively undercut by sweatshop laborers in Sweden, but they are being undercut by low-income countries like Mexico, Vietnam, and elsewhere, but those countries too now have the tariffs paused. So if the long-term effect of these tariffs is to just keep them on China, but nowhere else, then all that manufacturing, that cheap manufacturing in China, is just gonna flow to other low-income countries, and we'll be right back at square one. Unless you're saying the point is China's an adversary of the United States, and we don't want them to have that manufacturing, then okay, that's fine. But is the point of this to f with China, or is the point of this to bring back American manufacturing? Because those are not the same goal. Again, I understand the vision here. Unfortunately, it's being carried out by the dumbest f***ing people in the known universe. And if you don't want to listen to me, then listen to Bernie Sanders, America's socialist grandpa, and the only politician I'd let babysit my kids. Targeted tariffs can be a powerful tool to stop corporations from outsourcing American jobs. They can help level the playing field for American auto workers or steel workers to compete fairly against companies who have moved production to countries where they can pay starvation wages. But Trump's chaotic across-the-board tariffs are not the way to do it. Imposing steel tariffs on countries like Germany or France will not bring jobs back to America. These are not low-wage countries. Corporations are not shutting down plants in America and moving them to Switzerland. Trump's blanket tariffs will just raise prices for American consumers and hurt our relationships with allies, undermining our global position. Yeah, again, tariffs, not a bad idea on paper, but they're a surgical tool, not a sledgehammer you take to the entire world. And again, I return to the fact that you have a better chance of finding your husband on Facebook Marketplace than you do of living to see American manufacturing returning to its golden age. This is a crypto scam based hot takes economy. I've talked about this in the past, okay? I'm still on the assembly line. I'm just spitting out poorly researched hot takes, instead of lumber or like cars. Here's another example. In 2018, LVMH made a big show of opening up a leather factory for Louis Vuitton in Texas. Their billionaire CEO, Bernard Arnault, and Donald Trump went to the factory, cut the ribbon, took a tour, the future of French luxury being made in God's own Texas. But problems have come to light recently. Problems like these Texans don't know or want to know how to make leather goods. From Reuters, and I quote, "It took them years to start making the simple pockets of the Neverfull handbag. Errors made during the cutting, preparation, and assembly process led to the waste of as many as 40% of the leather hides," said one former employee. Another person who worked at the facility until 2023 said she cut corners, like using a hot pin to melt canvas and leather to conceal imperfections in a particularly difficult piece. Another former leather worker said they'd seen people melt material to hide holes or other imperfections in stitching. Listen, I'm not in the market for a $2,000 to $3,000 handbag, but if I was, these are not the stories I'd want to be hearing. Americans were not made for these jobs. We were made for fake email jobs. That's what America is about. It's about feeling your soul leaving your body as you walk into a 1980s mid-rise office building in Parsippany, New Jersey, where you're gonna around on Outlook for 4 hours, take a 2-hour-long shit, watch YouTube for 2 hours, and then go home. That's the goal we need to be working towards. We need to be working towards how do we make sure everybody can get an affordable college education such that they can get an $80K a year job doing medical device sales? How do we get the people who have been left behind to the dream career of making it in middle management? We do not want to completely reorient the economy to bring back the child labor factories like it's 1860 out of a deranged belief that there is some forgotten America that we can return to. It's not coming back. Any politician who tells you that they can bring all the factories back is lying to your face. Do I think there isn't things we could do? Of course not. Do I think we shouldn't be punishing these countries that are using forced labor, child labor, slave labor? We should. We should be using our economic power. We have 30% of the world's consumption, even though we're like 4% of the world's population, because we love buying. We should be using that power to say, hey, we're not doing business with people who are exploiting their workers or undercutting Americans. But nobody who is currently making $17 an hour at Burger King wants to be making $17 an hour standing in front of a coal furnace. They want a better job. They want better opportunities. They want healthcare that isn't a scam. They want an education that isn't a scam. Those are the things that Donald Trump will never focus on. So all that's to say that, these tariffs are fucking stupid. These Trump tariffs are incredibly stupid. And I don't know where this roller coaster ends, but this is the ride we decided we wanted to take for the next 4 years, and there ain't no getting off. But I can tell you where this ride doesn't end. It doesn't end with us all deciding to stop buying less cheap bullshit from Amazon. Because I've seen this movie before. I've seen layaway come back when the last recession hit. When the going gets rough, you do the American thing. You don't buy less, you take out loans for more. And I don't see how causing widespread poverty and hardship on our fellow Americans is a long-term solution to the consumerism that we see nowadays. Consumerism isn't an economic problem, it's a cultural one. We live in a materialistic culture that has been turbocharged by social media that puts extreme value on your material possessions, on the brand of your car, on the size of your McMansion, on the girth of your Shein haul. That culture doesn't change in hard times, it just shifts. We're already seeing it, in my opinion, with this quiet luxury bullshit. People just change the way that their rampant consumerism manifests. They start flashing a black Mercedes in front of you instead of a red one. But the consumerism itself never changes. I'm not willing to let my neighbor starve to test this theory out. You might remember that global CO2 emissions dropped like a rock during the pandemic because people were driving less cars. That doesn't mean you start a global pandemic to address climate change. And in the short term, these tariffs are actually increasing consumption as people and companies rush out to buy things before the tariffs hit. I mean, Apple is airlifting iPhones out of India like it's the last chopper out of Vietnam. People are going out and buying cars that they don't want or need because they're afraid that they're going to get more expensive in a year or two. I know how much we love talking about overconsumption, guys. I do. I get it. But people love buying stuff. I love buying stuff. Not as much as these people willing to kill each other over a water bottle at Target, but I do love buying things. I respect the want to like watch these people get their comeuppance or to watch them be forced to chill, but that will never happen until it becomes socially unacceptable to engage in this kind of behavior, this kind of haul culture. It will never end. The people who do this stuff are always going to be the upper middle class, upper class, and they can swallow an increase of 20% to their Shein haul order. A teacher, a nurse, a firefighter, they can't swallow a 20% increase to their grocery bill, which is already way higher now than it should be. And for all we know, Trump could literally just be doing this as market manipulation for his friends and associates to game the market and make billions of dollars while nobody's looking. That is an entirely plausible theory, given how brain dead this tariffs rollout has been. But if we keep this up, in a couple of months, people are going to be doing money spreads with eggs on TikTok. And I'm tired enough as it is.
Yeah, how many eggs you got, bitch? How many eggs you got?
So if this whole tariffs thing blows over, then I'll see you at Erewhon, and I'm running up a check. But if Trump brings the tariffs back, then I'll see you at the factory. And together, we're going to be putting out iPhones that have the same craftsmanship as those Texas Louis bags.